This is TLV1.
TLV1 radio.
Great mixture.
I like Tel Aviv.
This is still V1.
This is
Tel Aviv is a beautiful city.
Great city, great radio.
TLV1.
This is TLV1.
From the Tel Aviv studios in Tel Aviv, Israel, it's Louis live. That's host me, Ari Louis. Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone is well. This is Louis live from the Holy Land, last show of the Jewish year, as the holiday Rosh Hashanah will be tomorrow. We've got a great show to wrap up the year. Last segment of the program, we'll have on Brin-Jonathan Butler to talk about Floyd Mayweather's out of the rain antics. Peter Kurtz, the director of IAB, Israel Association of Baseball, to talk about the world ranking, Diana Redmond, and much more. But on the line right now, making a return appearance from last week, Maccabi Petah Tikva's PA announcer, Ari Roda. Ari, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Ari. How's everyone doing? Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get down to it. We have two main stories to talk about with you in this segment. UEFA has finally lifted their ban on matches held in Israel. They had that ban because of the war and did not allow matches to occur. What was the final reason why they decided to lift the ban?
Well, it's not only in football. In other sports, there was also a ban, and they decided to lift it since they found out the situation is pretty much back to normal. It's not the first time they're having a ban in hosting international games in Israel. I think that the most, the biggest memory of games that were supposed to be in Israel and was back in 2003 when Maccabi Haifa was playing in the Champions League, in the Europa Champions League, and they had to host their games in Cyprus because of a similar situation, and they actually got 7 points in that group that year. So who knows, maybe if they had played in Haifa in Israel, maybe they would have gotten, to qualify for the quarterfinals or something.
Yes.
So, but it always gives us an excuse if you don't manage to go through and win a few games.
Yes, we saw that a few times where there were some games that could have gone either way had Israel played those games at home, but it didn't work out that way among those teams. And another interesting component of the story, the Euro 2006 qualifier, that was going to be at home against Belgium. That was going to happen earlier this month. It's postponed to March. And
right.
Tell us the latest on those details.
Well, basically, it was quite complicated because it was during the time where the war was going on and off, with the ceasefires. So, our association, the Football Association, tried to get the game going in Israel according to the plan in September. And the Belgians, basically they wanted to take advantage of the situation and just ask to have the game in the same date, only in a different ground. And, of course, it will make a big disadvantage for Israel. As they were expecting to see at least 25,000 people going into Teddy Stadium in Jerusalem to watch the Israeli national football team play against Belgium. So they tried to take advantage of the situation, and eventually we got into a compromise where instead of hosting a friendly match against Germany in March, that was supposed to happen. It's too bad because, Germany is the world champions right now, and it would have been great to see them here in Israel. However, instead of that, we're going to host Belgium in March, and there's still plenty of more time until Israel's first game in the qualifying group. Let's hope it will help.
Yeah, and it is a shame that we missed out on the friendly with Germany. And one last interesting side note with this story, we reported on this last week with Mark Gordon that Israel was one of the finalists to host the Euro 2020. They gave a very poor showing, a very poor report. The decision was made on Friday to not have the Euro in Israel, correct?
Yes. They I don't think they were actually planning on making the entire, or maybe they did. I don't know, the entire finals in Jerusalem. However, I think they've meant like one game or just the finals of the Europa League or the Champions League, which is still an amazing venue and amazing game to host. People from all around the world are watching and coming. I won't say that everyone's an anti-Semite, and
No, I don't think that's what happened.
Basically, the chances, even though we were the finalists to host that game, the chances to hold such a big event in Israel are pretty slim at any given moment, especially when there's a war going on, even though we're talking about 6 years from now.
Right.
So,
right.
It's kind of difficult.
Well, that's what we discussed last week with Mark, that I didn't think it was anti-Semitism, neither did he, because the report given was so bad. It did not have basic information about hotels, size of stadiums, streets, all that kind of stuff. So I don't blame anti-Semitism. I blame stupidity on that one. And
Could
the last...
be. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just one thing to add. I'm not even sure, like, were they really planning on hosting the entire European Championship in Israel? You need more than one. You need at least 8 stadiums.
Right. It was
like,
going to be. It was going to be a few of the cities might have been in Israel. Maybe just Teddy, and that might have been it. But it would have been a big deal to have even just that. And let's finally talk about a very fun story. I really like seeing this. Maccabi Tel Aviv had a meeting with the oldest Holocaust survivor. His name is Israel Kristal. He is 111 years old. Why did that meeting take place? Not that it's not a good story, but why all of a sudden would they meet with the oldest Holocaust survivor currently right now?
Well, first, also I have to mention that in my opinion, it's an amazing story. It's very heartwarming.
Yeah, sure.
Well, it's always a good thing that a football team or just any sporting team meets up with the fans. And when you have a situation like that where someone has celebrating their 111th birthday and they're the oldest Holocaust survivor in Israel, it's a very important thing. And let's say to show appreciation or to show the fans that the teams are also a part of them, like they are aware of what's going on. And it's also very common in Israel since, we're a small country. Everyone knows each other pretty much. So it's also very common for footballers and coaches and other sportsmen to go visit people in their bar mitzvahs and weddings and, just show that it's not only a one-way thing. And in this case, we're talking about a person who is older than the team itself.
Right. Yeah,
which is a phenomenal story. The funny thing, if I may mention it, is that the 2 players that are shown in the picture with Mr. Kristal are Barak Yitzhaki and Eden Ben Basat. Which are both not descendants of European Jews, which is kind of ironic, I had to mention it, but all in all, it's a great story. It's really heartwarming. I like to read this article.
Yeah, it was great, and also I love the picture because Israel is wearing a jersey that says Israel on it. It says 111 because he's 111 years old with the 2 soccer stars. Great to see, and I'm happy they did that. Ellie, we got to run. Thanks for being on Louis Live tonight, and of course, Shana Tova to you and your family.
Thank you, Ari. It was a pleasure. Shana Tova to everyone. Cheers.
All right, be well. All right, that was Ari Roda, who is the PA announcer for Maccabi Petah Tikva. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side, you guys want to know about fantasy football, how to play in Israel, how to get involved, the latest. Stay tuned. We're going to have Cali Dave tell us all about it. This is Louis Live on TLV1. back here on Louis Live. Thanks again to Roda for coming on the program. Now, a lot of you out there play fantasy football, or you don't, and you want to know more about it, and we're going to get some help, not just with what it is, but what's current league to be a part of. On the line right now, the commissioner and the reigning defending Israel Sports Radio fantasy football champion, Cali Dave. Cali Dave, what up?
Hey, Ari. Pleasure to be on your show. I'm honored. I'm quite honored to have to take over the league like I did last year. But what's going on, man? What can I do? What can I help the listeners with?
Well, first, fantasy football is such a huge money-making, such a huge popular thing. We're not playing, this league's not for money, but it's a huge part of football that so many people are involved. Explain a little bit to the listeners what exactly fantasy football is.
Well, I mean, basically, you have public and private leagues. The core of fantasy football started back probably in the early 2000s, and you'd have a group of 8 to 12 friends, and you get into a league and you draft players in the NFL before the season starts based on how you think they're going to do. So you have a couple wide receivers, 2 running backs, tight end, and a QB. You're drafting a whole team. You're like the manager of the team, and each week you're going head-to-head against one of those friends that you've had in the league. And a lot of the times there'll be a prize pool involved or a trophy, or if you've watched the show The League, some sort of humiliation if you don't happen to win the league. So that's the general principle of it. But, yeah, what you're saying is quite true. It is a huge money-making thing right now. I won't mention the exact website, but there's a website where you can go on and win up to $400,000 to $1 million weekly playing against other people in a general league pool. So it has blown up and exploded.
And the idea in a nutshell that if you pick a player, let's say quarterback, he throws a touchdown or he throws a certain amount of yards, that generates points for the guy who picked that player, right?
Yeah, so here's another part, an aspect of it is you're going to have 2 QBs on your team. You only get to start 1. So analyzing the matchups, knowing your quarterback's strengths and each different player's strengths, and realizing what the league scoring is. In some leagues, you'll get a point for every reception your receiver has. In other leagues, you only get points for their yards. So analyzing the settings of the scoring and then your players and their matchups, setting the best lineup is a huge part of it. So there's a lot of strategy involved.
I mean, this is such a huge potential to make money that there are people that study this all year. They know that a running back will run better to a certain offense, and he plays better against certain teams. So there's a real science to this, right? This is not just luck.
Well, Ari, listen, I'll tell you, there definitely is people who consistently do better than others, but there's definitely an element of luck. Think about anyone who drafted Adrian Peterson in one of the first 3 picks, which he was drafted in every league in the world. Your number 1 pick, Adrian Peterson, he no longer is playing football. So there is an aspect of luck. And in the NFL, there's the injury. So playing the waiver wire, initiating trades if you're able to, these are the things that lead to a winning fantasy football player. But, yeah, I maybe correlate it to poker, where in the long run, a good player will win out. But in the short term, there's variation. And so a great player, you could have, Deion Sanders or someone like that in your fantasy league, and they could come in last place because they have bad luck. So luck involved and strategy.
All right, again, we're speaking with Cali Dave, who is not only the reigning champion of the Israel Sports Radio Fantasy Football League, he's the commissioner as well. Let's break down the standings. Right now, there's a 6-way tie at first place. Again, not a lot of games. 6 people are 2-1, and your team is Frizzle. Is that correct, or am I wrong with that?
I'm the Iron Dome.
Oh, Iron Dome. Sorry about that. Iron Dome.
Protecting all the people in Israel. Thank you very much.
Yes, we certainly owe you a debt of gratitude. So you're Iron Dome. You're 2-1, and tell us. Give us a recap of the season, the early season so far. Did you feel like 2-1 was fair based on your picks, or were you disappointed in that one loss?
Well, I'm happy at 2-1, but part of the thing that happened with me this year is in the draft. I didn't go along the lines of what most people were doing. I kind of took some long shots early, and one of my players has gotten injured. So I'm happy because of my standing, but in the long run in the season, I'm not sure it's going to be tenuous, and we'll have to see how it comes out. But yeah, the draft is obviously a highlight of the season. It's what people prepare for, and I thought I had a pretty good draft. So Yahoo anyway ranked my draft as an A. So,
Nice.
Yahoo knows, right?
I guess, yeah. So they say. Now, what are some things you're looking for? Because after the draft, there's still work to do. You have waiver wire. You can try to make trades. Obviously, I'm one of your competitors in the league. You don't have to give me any inside information. But what are some of the things you're looking for? If you could say on the air without giving me an advantage, whatever you want to say.
Here's a little. I'll give a couple players who are hot on the waiver wire right now. But before I do that, the main thing to think about is who's getting the bulk of the touches on any team on any given Sunday. So, for instance, Arian Foster was ruled out on Sunday. As you know, he's a running back for the Houston Texans. He's a fantasy beast. Okay, he's my starting running back. And right before the game, if you were following, you would have known he was not going to start. And Alfred Blue, who's his backup, was going to get all of the touches. So that's someone who, if you were a smart and good fantasy player, you'd be following the injury updates, and you pick up that player who's the backup for that star. Adrian Peterson, his backup running back, Matt Asiata. Last week, as soon as you heard about the AP story, that's someone you snag off the waiver wire. These are the things that will lead to fantasy victories. Getting value by picking up the backups of the stars who get injured.
All right. And last question we have for you, Cali Dave. This happens to a lot of us in Israel who play fantasy football, watch the games late at night. What happens when you have your favorite team, like in your case, the Chargers? They play against a team that's one of your fantasy football guys. So there's an incentive for your team to lose or your team to let the other player do well. How do you handle that personally as a football fan?
As a football fan, honestly, I'm definitely rooting first and foremost for the Chargers, San Diego Super. But if, let's say, I have, like this week, the Bills played the Chargers, I have Fred Jackson, who's a running back on the Bills. So I was kind of hoping, hey, they're already on the 5-yard line. Let's have Fred Jackson get in the end zone. They're going to get in the end zone anyway. But, of course, you want your team to win. But there's a bit of a conflict. You bring up quite an interesting point. I loathe the fantasy fan who will choose their player doing well over their team doing well. Bandwagoners are not accepted.
All right. And, of course, me and you had a great time watching the Chargers in the playoffs at your place in January, so I know how much you're a dedicated football fan. So I definitely appreciate where that's coming from. Cali Dave, thanks for being on the show tonight. And, of course, shout out to you and your family. We always enjoy having you on the show. And we'll certainly keep the listeners up to date on the whole Israel Sports Radio Fantasy Football League.
Sounds great, Mr. Lewis. Enjoyed the time, and have a good rest of your show.
Thanks so much. Be well. All right.
Bye.
All right, folks. That was Cali Dave, Commissioner of the ISR Football League. And again, as I mentioned, a 6-way tie for first place. There is a 3-way tie for second place between Team BMAC, Ari Louis's team, and Eat Your Fart Out, which is not a team I picked. That's not my name, but that is there. Thanks to Jeremy for that one. All right, we're going to take a break. On the other side, we're going to talk more football, but this time it's a soccer style with David Z. Harris. And that'll be on the other side. This is Lewis Live on TLV1.
You used to get it in your fishnets, now you only get it in your night dress. Discarded all the naughty nights for niceness, landed in a very common crisis. Everything's in order in a black hole, nothing seems to pity your past though. A bloody memory's like an El Tabasco. Remember when you used to be a rascal? Oh, the boys are slag. The best you ever had, the best you ever had is just a memory and those dreams. When as daft as they seem, as daft as they seem, my love, when you dream them all. Flicking through a little book of sex tips. Remember when the bars were all electric? And now when she told she's gonna get it, I'm guessing that she'd rather just forget it. Clinging to not getting sentimental. Said she wasn't going but she went still. Like a gentleman had to be gentle. Was it a mechadabra or a betting pencil? Oh, the boys are slag. The best you ever had, the best you ever had is just a memory and those dreams. But as daft as they seem, as daft as they seem, my love, when you dream them overflow. Where did you go? Where did you go? Where did you
right back here on Louis Live on TLV1. Of course, you can follow this show, Louis Live, on its YouTube channel, and you can type in Louis Live on YouTube. Also, you can email me at longlivelouislive@gmail.com. Speaking of living, on the line right now, a very live reporter. He is a radio talk show host about the sport of football. Back to the program, David Z. Harris. David, how you doing out there?
Hey, I'm fine, thank you. How are you doing, Ari?
Doing well. Let's get right down to it. On Thursday, there was a game between Partizan Belgrade and the United Kingdom's Tottenham Hotspur, and there was some anti-Semitic material among the fans. And before we talk about that particular incident, let's give the listeners the background about Tottenham, because they are known as the Jewish team of England, or one of the Jewish teams. So tell us a bit about their background.
To some extent, Tottenham brings the problem upon themselves. Now, in no way am I going to justify racism, but Tottenham are known as the Yids, which is not exactly an acceptable word these days. And in fact, over the last few years, Tottenham has tried to move away from that reputation. But if you go to a game, you'll find that fans will be holding signs with the Star of David on it, the Magen David, not necessarily Jewish fans or Israeli fans, but just it's become something that is associated with the club. It's also one of the two main teams, along with Arsenal, that most Jewish fans support. Support for Tottenham from the Jewish fans dates back as far as World War II and possibly even before that.
All right, and the sign, I mean, I'm just saying it on the air, I'll just do the best I can. It's what it is. The sign said, "Only Jews and Pussies." Apparently, it was a reference to some comedy show called Only Fools and Horses. I mean, how abnormal is it to see a sign of that nature at a football game?
Yeah, I think football authorities, certainly around Europe, have made every effort to stamp out racism. There are campaigns headed by the players. Anybody who watched soccer's recent World Cup in Brazil will have seen on TV ads throughout the competition and before the world's best-known players right up to Messi, calling on people to stamp this out. So it is something that's unusual. By the way, one of the English newspapers, I think it was the Daily Express, had a riff on this term, "Only Fools and Horses," which is the name of the program, and called it "Only Fools and Racists," which I think was an appropriate headline given the story. All
right, now, as far as punishment, can you punish the team? I mean, because individual fans, you could ban them from coming to the games again. I mean, what type of punishment can you really serve out, even though it's such a disrespectful and disgusting sign?
This is the problem that the soccer authorities, in this case UEFA, the European governing body, have. Because at the end of the day, it's not the 11 players out there or the coach that are responsible. It's a group of unruly fans, could be one or two, or when we've heard some of the racist chants, where you can hear an entire area of the seating shouting abuse, particularly at black players. But it is done by individuals. So clubs do get punished, but their punishment tends to be fairly light. So in this case, what we're looking at, and the decision, by the way, will come on October the 3rd, is something like a one match without the fans. Fans are not allowed in or partially not allowed into the stadium, along with a fine for the club. The fines tend to be, it sounds like a large amount of money, talking of maybe $100,000. For most clubs, though, of course, that's small fry. If one of the major European clubs was doing this, it wouldn't account for much. I imagine Partizan Belgrade will be affected by it, but not overly, even though they are from a smaller footballing nation, Serbia. They still get quite a bit of revenue from entering, for example, these European competitions from the rights from the TV coverage.
Again, we're speaking with David Z. Harris here on Louis Live. Now, this was another wrinkle to the story I found very fascinating. The head coach of Partizan Belgrade is a man named Marko Nikolic, and he said after the game, quote, "I want to congratulate the crowd. The support was great. Not only great, but everything went well. It was a wonderful sporting event without the slightest problem." Now, did he not know about the sign, or did he and said it anyway? What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, the club issued a very, very big, serious apology afterwards. I suspect part of that was to try to mitigate the punishment they're going to get. I can't speak to that individual sign, but what I can tell you is that during the game, the way that Tottenham were treated by the fans was thoroughly acceptable. That the anti-Semitism aside, Maurizio Pochettino, who's the coach of the Tottenham side, said, he's never come across such a hostile crowd. Occasionally you'll find, fans will boo for one particular player if they committed a foul, but the booing was throughout the game. Apparently, certain fans were using lasers to try to get them into the eyes of the Tottenham players to blind them during the game. And at the end of the game, something that's also pretty much unheard of now in Europe, there was an invasion of the pitch. So the coach might have been blinded, if you will, to the sign, but couldn't help but have noticed the pitch invasion and some of the booing, which is thoroughly unsporting.
Yeah, maybe the laser went into his eyes and he didn't see the sign for some reason. Last thing I want to bring up with you, I just want to get more perspective on how bad this is in their Tottenham's history, because I understand there have been times where Tottenham has gone to certain places, they made gas noise signs, as in gas chambers, this type of thing, to the Holocaust, to the Shoah. So historically, how bad is the sign just from Tottenham's perspective?
Yeah, it's absolutely the case. Tottenham fans on an individual basis, and obviously Jews are more aware of this than the others, will say that they will, mainly on their European travels, less so in the United Kingdom, will have songs sung, will have gestures made, etc., etc. But you also must realise that it's not just Tottenham, who, as we say, are called the Yids, Ajax, which is the best-known soccer club in Holland. They also have a very, very strong identity with the Jewish people in much the same way as Tottenham. And they, too, find that there is often racist abuse. And even though the club has traditionally been owned by Jewish people and are very involved in it, they try now to move away from that Jewish side of things. A lot of this has also come to light, unfortunately, with regard to Israeli policies and this excuse of anti-Zionism, coming to the fore as anti-Semitism on the field. But it's not just about Jews, as I mentioned earlier. For example, Danny Rose, who is a black player who is with Tottenham but was arrested for this game. A year or so ago, he was playing for the England under-21 team against Serbia in Belgrade, the same city, and he had serious racist abuse, and unfortunately he got sent off at the time because of very poor refereeing decisions, and the reason he was sent off was because he was complaining about the racism there. Again, the punishments are not serious enough, but the question remains, what do the footballing authorities do, because it's an issue of the fans rather than the team themselves.
All right. David Z. Harris breaking it down the way it is, the anti-Semitism in the sport of football. Thanks so much for being on the program tonight. And, of course, shout out to you and your family.
Happy New Year.
All right. Sounds good. Be well. A little muffled there, but we understood what he said. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side, sticking with this football soccer theme, I think people are going to think I'm an addict to the sport. Dinah Redmond, member of the Israeli national female soccer team. This is Louis Live on TLV1. All right, back here on TLV1. Of course, that great music is courtesy of Tomer Gershman, who makes all the music for all my shows. Shout out to Tomer, and shout out to Adam, who's producing tonight this program. Again, we've talked a lot of football. We're going to continue that theme. On the line right now, good friend of the show, a member of Israel's national soccer team, Dinah Redmond. Dinah, welcome back to the program.
Hi, how are you?
Doing wonderful, and of course, you were on our hit show, the Ladies' Night episode. We had 6 female Jewish athletes, and at the time, we thought that we may be breaking news of what team you are going to, but that had not been confirmed, and I understand now it has been confirmed of the team you'll be playing for next season?
Yes, I will be on my way to Portugal in the next week or so to play with a team that's going to the Champions League. So they're bringing me on for a little extra strength in the next 2 games for the Champions League, which will be mid-October, I think October 9th and October 18th, along with playing, in the season. So very exciting. Yeah,
certainly very exciting. I imagine that was probably on the top of your list. You have a lot of options. You're a very well-known soccer player, a lot of places you can go, but I imagine that this particular team was probably right up there for you, right?
Yeah, what was most attractive about the offer was that, they're going to play in the Champions League, the round of 32. They're out of the group stage, so, another great opportunity to play some big teams in Europe. So, I love the travel, so it's another 2 games I get to play outside.
Now, also, I imagine you're probably going to be the only Jewish player on the team. Is that accurate, or am I wrong there?
That I have no idea. I would assume, possibly. I don't know, though.
But, you've been
the only Israeli.
Yeah, that's for sure. You're going to be the only Israeli. And you've been such a strong advocate for Israel throughout the war in Gaza. Is this another opportunity to be in a new environment, around new people, to represent Israel in another scene in another way?
Yeah, I always want to be a positive role model, just be a positive player, and always, everything for peace and getting along. And, it's always trying to keep things separate, but also having your opinions. But, it's hard to keep things separate, especially with Israel. Everyone kind of puts tags on you, especially when you just say the word Israel. But it'll be nice to go out in a different part of, Portugal. There's not really Israeli players out there, so it'd be nice for the girls to meet an Israeli player and kind of get a sense of who we are and how we play, and just things in general.
Now,
if you don't know someone from the area, you can kind of say anything you want with anyone.
Right, for sure. Now, what are the plans in regards to how long you be the team, meaning like options? Would you be looking to stay there for a long time? Tell us kind of short-term plans, what you're looking to do. Of course, as much as you're allowed to. I don't want you to get you in trouble with the team or the age or anything like that, but wherever you're allowed to tell us of the general short-term plans, what would you like to do?
Well, I want to be successful in the next 2 UEFA Championships games. We'll see after that. We're playing Fortuna, which they're the Danish champs, so they're kind of really strong. And they just recently signed 3 or 4 more players from the NWSL just to bring on for these games. So it'll be a bit difficult, but not something that can't be done. Even just last week, our national team, Israel, we beat Denmark 1-0. A huge loss for them, which nobody saw coming, but, so anything can happen in soccer.
I have to say that, Dinah, not to put more pressure on you, but you have a lot of weight on your shoulders because of recently the UEFA has not allowed the Euro 2020 to be in Israel because we basically did not give a good report. And this is an opportunity to represent Israel internationally because we don't have that many opportunities. The war in Gaza ended some games that were going to be in Israel. It got moved, got canceled, etc. So do you look at this? Do you look at this as like more pressure or more of an opportunity to do Hasbara because there aren't that many opportunities out there right now?
Yeah, it's very true, especially if you're an Israeli looking for a team. First of all, what comes first is just being a good player and getting on the field and doing your job. If you can represent Israel in a positive light, that's even better. And just represent women's soccer in a positive manner, and that's even better. But, it sucks that the games, get moved and you have to play them. Your home games are being played in, I think Cyprus are being played for the boys and things like that. So, it's not fun. You don't get to represent your own country in your own country for these games. But, that's kind of the reality at the moment. And no matter what, you have to get on the field and do your job. just trying to stay positive.
It sucks indeed. And again, we're speaking with Diana Remmett here on Louis Live. Last question for you. To me, probably the most important. I understand there's some type of calendar coming out with women who play soccer. Tell us about that. Is that going to be out in the public, and people can get that? Tell us some more information.
Yeah, it's actually coming out in November. It's the Women of Soccer. It'll be a calendar. You can buy it on Amazon. I'll also post, on all the social media places that you can buy it. I'll have a raffle for signed calendars, with the signed flag and stuff like that. But it's going to be soccer players from different teams. I'm going to be with Ashley Nitch. She's from Sky Blue in the NWSL, and there's a few other players in there. And it's going to be really great. It was really fun. We went down to Laguna Beach and took some photos, and they look great. Can't wait for it to come out.
Yeah, and some of those pictures are on Facebook already, just to give people like a sneak peek of what the calendar will be like. So that's good news, and you're on with a team in Portugal. That's great stuff as well. So, Diana, happy to hear the success, and thank you for being on the program tonight on Louis Live, and shout out to you and all your family.
Thank you so much, guys.
All right, be well out there. All right, Diana Redmond, boys and girls, member of the Israel national soccer team and now a member of Portugal in the Champions League. That news broke right here on Louis Live. We always give you groundbreaking news and stuff that a lot of mainstream news does not report. And we'll find out more about that in our final segment of the program. We'll take a quick break. On the other side, the president of the IAB, Israel Association of Baseball, Peter Kurz. This is Louis Live on TLV1. Back here on Louis Live. Thanks again to Diana Remmett for coming on the program. We're going to switch gears, talk some baseball. On the line right now, the president of the IAB, Israel Association of Baseball, Peter Kurz. Peter, welcome back to the program.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, we got some exciting news. Not too long ago, about a week and a half ago, Israel baseball was ranked 19th in the world. Tell us why they had such a high ranking.
Okay, first of all, it's EBOF, which is the International Baseball Association. Every year they come out with a ranking. We were ranked 26th last year, and we just did a lot of really good things this year. First of all, our senior national team, our adult national team, won the European Championship C Pool in Ljubljana that was held at the end of July. Not only did we win the tournament, we won all 5 of the games. We won them by a score differential of 57-7.
Wow!
So we totally dominated that level. And next year we're going up to the B pool. I've offered to host it in Israel, and I'm waiting for the SEAB Federation, the SEAB executive, which I'm part of because I'm the vice president of SEAB, to make a decision at the end of November if to award it the B pool to Israel or not.
So when you say that the Israel baseball is ranked 19th, that's everyone. That's the under 16 teams, the national team. It's everybody, right?
Yes, that's everybody, and it's also the whole world. So we're ranked ahead of other countries such as Great Britain,
wow,
South Africa, Nicaragua, a lot of other countries around the world.
All right, and the jump from 26th to 19th, how significant is that? Is that common to go up 7 spots in the span of a year?
No, it's not common. I think 2 other countries did go up as many spots as we did, but most countries will go up 1 or 2 spots or 3 spots and maybe down a few spots. I mean, just now there was the A pool of the European Championship, and Holland, the Netherlands, defeated Italy, but the Netherlands are number 1 in Europe and Italy's number 2 in Europe, so that won't change very much. And the other countries were more or less. Spain actually was in 3rd place, where I think they're ranked after Germany, so maybe that'll change a little bit, the Germany and the Spanish. But those rankings are just going to be next summer, so we have a whole year to go now.
Now, obviously, you've done a tremendous amount of work, and Margot and a lot of people on your staff. But obviously, you have the King of Baseball, Nate Fish. That was a new addition. He's the national director. I mean, how much credit does he deserve for this amazing jump from 26th to 19th?
He deserves an incredible amount of credit for the jump. He became our national director exactly 1 year ago. He's done an incredible job throughout the year getting more people involved playing baseball in Israel. First of all, we have 25% increase in the number of players involved in baseball in Israel. Last year we had about 650, and this year we ended up close to 800. And our goal for the 2014-15 season is to pass the 1,000 mark and to be on our way to 1,500 players. So that the first thing is he's flattened out the bottom of the pyramid. He's extended the bottom of the pyramid. He's also extended the top of the pyramid because he's worked with very much with elite players. We also have now the IAB Baseball Academy, which is an academy for the 10 or 12 elite top players from 16 to 21. And that's just starting at the end of October. That's something brand new that we put in. By the way, it's also connected to Major League Baseball, who support this. And Nate himself was our starting shortstop on the team that won the C pool.
Not bad. He does a little of everything. He's got a bunch of different hats and does a great job at it. Now, when I did the games last year, broadcast the games last year, you talked about that there was a dream of yours to have an Israeli player in the major leagues, and we're one step closer. Apparently, Noam Kalisar is going to be at an MLB camp in the summer. Just talk about how amazing that is.
Well, he was selected for MLB camp this past summer.
Excuse me.
Exactly. Yes. He was selected this past summer. He was also going to be the starting shortstop. Noam Kalisar is a 16-year-old kid. He's an incredible player. He's got great potential. He was offered to be in the MLB camp in the summer. Unfortunately for him and for Israel baseball, he separated his shoulder 1 week before. He was very, very disappointed, but I spoke with the people at MLB International, and they agreed to take him to the camp with separated shoulder and all, so he could be there. He could get some of the atmosphere there. He could get some of the training there. He couldn't physically be involved with the coursework there, but he definitely soaked in a lot of that atmosphere. He's come back now. He wasn't able to go with us to Ljubljana either, which he was disappointed about, but I'd rather prefer to have Noam be good and be functional in the future. He's playing right now in the PL League. He's back to playing. He's back up there. His shoulder is fine, and we're hoping that everything will be good with him. And he has the potential to be the first Israeli, at least in minor league baseball. Let's start with minor league baseball, and then we'll go to the major league.
Yeah, that'd still be pretty good. I mean, I spoke with a friend of mine today. Even if someone plays AA, AAA, that's a pretty fine accomplishment. There's only a few thousand people on planet Earth that could do that, right?
That's right. There are 14 Jews playing Major League Baseball. And there's about 150 in all the minor leagues that there are, including a good 10, 12 guys who played for Team Israel 2 years ago in the WBC qualifiers.
And as far as Noam's track, you mentioned a 16, 18. How would it work with the military deferment, et cetera? Because if he required to 18, 21 to serve in the IDF, would he have an opportunity to get a sports deferment and continue his baseball career overseas or wherever would be best for him?
Well, what we're doing now, baseball is allowed a certain number of sports deferments every year. In other words, it's what's called a sportai pa'il, an active sports person, which means that he goes to the Army every day for a few hours, but he's released in the afternoon to play baseball in the afternoon and the evening. So he's got that free time, the half a day to play baseball. He's also allowed to go overseas up to 90 days a year.
Okay.
So we have 3 people like that right now in the Army. We have 2 more great candidates coming up this year, and we have Noam and another candidate coming up the next year. And these guys, basically for 3 years, they're really dedicated to baseball. They're also in the Army. They're doing their Army service. They complete Army service, but they're also dedicated to baseball. They can improve in baseball. They can go overseas to play baseball. And we're looking to send some guys maybe in the summer to play in some leagues in the United States, some high-level leagues in the United States. And they can really improve their baseball. But again, when you have the Army, we have a kid who is also a sportai. His name is Alon Leishman, and he's now in his junior year in San Diego University, doing well, a relief pitcher, but he's 24 years old. So he's not much of a prospect at 24 years old. If he was 20 years old, if he was 19, 20 years old, he would be a prospect. But 24, he's already over the hill, unfortunately.
Wow, that's a tough break, and obviously an issue that will be addressed more in the years to come in regards to that. And just to finish up with Noam, so if he can go 90 days at a time, then he couldn't play minor league baseball for a team at 18, but he could play in camps. That's probably the best option for him at that time.
Yes, definitely. And also, if he had the possibility of playing minor league baseball, then he could probably become what's called a sportei ilil, which is a very high-level sportei. People like Shachapeh was like that. Some other people were like that, which means they will release them for a longer period of time if that's possible. But I don't think for Noam it's possible. There might be a kid who's 7 or 8 years old who we don't know about right now who can go in that direction.
And I met Noam last year. He was 15 at the time, and the Maccabi Yad, he was very talented, obviously then, all the more so now a year later. And obviously hope his shoulder heals 100% and he could do great things.
By the way, another reason why we're 19 in the world is because Noam led a team also of under 16-year-olds to the championship of the Pony League, which was in April. So they got into the championship game and lost to the Czech Academy. And also our younger teams, our under 14 and our under 12-year-old teams, went to Italy this past summer and came in second and third place, respectively.
All right. And before we let you go, give a plug. People want to get more involved with Israel baseball. What's the best way they can go about doing that?
Just get on the Internet, get on the website, www.baseball.org.il. You'll see all the activity there. You'll see my telephone number there. You can get in touch with us, send us emails. Just get involved.
All right, Peter, thanks so much for the time tonight. And, of course, Shana Tova to you and your family. Congratulations.
Shana Tova to all the listeners.
All right, thank you. Be well.
All right, thank you.
All right, Peter Kurz, the president of IAB, Israel Association of Baseball, talk about the 19th world ranking, and, of course, Noam Kalisar. We'll take a break. On the other side, Floyd Mayweather's trouble with the law outside of the ring with Brin-Jonathan Butler. This is Louis Live on TLV1.
שלי אומרת לי שאת בכלל לא בשבילי, שיש סיבה לדאגה ושאני כמו משוגע. אז אני אומר לה כך, אצלי הראש כבר מסובך, היא לי בת עין ואישון, היא לא נותנת לי לישון. פרח שלי למה ליבך כמו קרח ואצבעך לגעת ורק לשים טבעת, אז למה לך לצעוק ולמה לכעוס? אני רוצה לשבור את הכוס. כדורסל לא מתעניין, לא בא לים ביום שבת, כל מה שיש לי זה רק את. אל תגידי זה אבוד, כי מהמילואים מבוא עם גדוד, טנק מימין משמאל תותח, ככה אני אוהב אותך. פרח שלי או פרח, למה ליבך.
All right, final segment of the Jewish Year here on Louis Live. Really can't think of anyone better. He is the director of Split Decision, the story of Garo Rigondo, the Cuban boxer who defected from Cuba, became world champion. Also has written a book about it as well. Let's bring him to the show. We don't really have enough time to talk about this subject, but we're going to bring him on and do what we can in about 10 minutes. Welcome back, Brin-Jonathan Butler. Brin, how you doing out there?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Fantastic. And, you know, what happened last week, we had on Joe Robbins to discuss Floyd Mayweather's victory over Marcos Maidana. He got $32 million. He's the top of the hill, etc. And then it was brought to my attention, Floyd's not such a nice guy outside of the ring. He has a very likable personality, gives a lot of interviews. He also has apparently 12 different incidents of domestic violence. Is that correct?
I've heard of 7 that were reported in a recent Deadspin article, and I think he's been convicted or not contested 3 of those charges.
Okay, so let's first, I want to go to 2012 because you were on my show around this time. He was sentenced to 3 months in prison because he abused a woman, and he had a fight coming up in May against Robert the Ghost, and they delayed his jail sentence so he could fight in May, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
How insane is that? You have no other situation. If a person is convicted of a crime, they have to go to jail right away. They don't delay it so he can go to work. So are we setting ourselves up, the public, for something very, very bad? Perhaps O.J. Simpson-like. O.J. had all these domestic incidents with Nicole Brown Simpson, and he was given a pass because he was O.J., and then he committed double homicide. Are we going down those waters with Floyd Mayweather?
Well, I think it's slightly different. I mean, I think all of that's true in equating the two in terms of celebrity. But the other big factor that O.J. didn't have, that the judge did cite in allowing the delayed sentence, was his economic value to Las Vegas would have been so detrimental had he not fought that they would have lost something in the neighborhood of $1 billion cumulatively to hotels, travel, airplanes, gambling, et cetera, et cetera. So that was the reason that the judge cited to allow him to have the fight, was strictly based on his economic value to an incredibly depressed city like Vegas.
Wow. All right. It also was interesting with that particular story. When he was in jail, he complained because he was not allowed to have bottled water. He had to drink from the tap, which, poor baby. And also, though, the strange thing, we saw the picture he posted on Twitter when he got out of jail. He looked in the best shape ever because he was in jail. He just did push-ups and sit-ups all day long, right?
He looked in absolutely great shape, no question.
All right. These incidents also, they date back a long time, and there was one particular incident with his, I guess you'd say, baby mom. I don't know how to describe it because it's not his wife, Joseph Harris, who is the mother of 3 of his kids. There was one incident in particular. He got very upset with her, and someone called the police, and she thought that had the police not been called, he would have killed her because he was very abusive to her, obviously. And then nothing happened. I think she dropped the charges, and he bought her a house. It was something very strange. Is part of the problem that he just pays people off if he gets in trouble?
Well, I mean, obviously all of these people are economically dependent on Floyd. I mean, what is their other source of income? He has a coterie of women who live in his house, who presumably are on salary. He has a coterie of men who are in the same position. When you consider he made in the neighborhood of $64 million for his last fight, both for the pay-per-view sales, and the minimum was, I think, $32 million was what he made for that fight, which is, I think, what he's making for all of the fights on his Showtime contract, a minimum of $32 million per fight. This guy is hugely valuable to a lot of people. And even with the Pacquiao lawsuit, where Floyd alleged that Pacquiao was using PEDs, I've heard rumors that he paid a huge amount of money to have that dismissed. So the money that's going around legitimately to people who work for him, and also just he gets into a lot of trouble. And the case that you're citing, I believe that it was actually one of Floyd's children who called the police, saying, we're terrified of what he's going to do to us. He's beating on our mother. The mother went to the hospital and did show signs of a mild concussion, bruising, was punched in the back of the head. So, Floyd's defense of that in a recent interview just before his last fight was to say, where are the pictures? But there's documented evidence that he absolutely was attacking her, and of course the number one witness who called it in and described it were his own children.
Wow. Again, speaking with Brin-Jonathan Butler here on Louis Live, I was wondering the psychology of a person who would do this because he has physical strength. He doesn't have to prove his toughness. He's a boxer. He's pound for pound the best. He's got all the money in the world. my thinking was perhaps he was abused as a child, which was documented by Floyd Mayweather Sr. Is that what carries into this? Is also Floyd views women like property, like possessions, like cars. He's mentioned that in interviews. What is your take if you're going to be Dr. Freud here? Why do you think he does this?
Well, I think it's a very revealing facet of the most recent jail sentence that he served, that the baby mother mentioned that she was dating an NBA player and that Floyd was jealous. He stole her phone, which is one of the charges against him, was stealing property, as well as attacking her. So I think that there's a lot of insecurity with Floyd. Paradoxically, as he says everything's about money. It's not how you win in the ring. It's just a matter that you do win. These seem very hollow defenses of consistently probably the most willing boxer in history in terms of great boxers to stink out a fight that there's ever been.
Right.
Almost all of his fights are booed. Almost all of them. So he's I think, demonstrated a tremendous cynical way to capitalize on fans, fewer and fewer fans as the fan base for boxing diminishes, having to pay more and more to watch him fight these sort of gimme fights. None of these have been big threats to Floyd beyond the fact that his skills are diminishing a little bit. I think he's still the best out there, pound for pound, but he's definitely slowing down. And the fact that a Cotto or a Maidana can give flashes of a competitive fight, I think doesn't speak to their ability. He's not fighting the top tier people.
Wow. Again, it's hard to figure out where this story will end up. And the insecurity thing, I just can't get over that. This is a guy that, as you mentioned, made over $60 million this year, and he's a boxer. How could a guy like that be insecure? I don't, outside of that, his fighting style maybe isn't as aggressive as someone else's, but it's fascinating to really think that a guy like that would be insecure, right?
Well, I remember Louis C.K. made a point about billionaires that beyond a certain point, how much better can you live?
Right.
How many private planes can you have? How big a TV can you have, et cetera? So I think where he was going with that is why is there never enough? And I think Floyd runs into that, and he's finding in terms of marketing himself with this, Ted DiBiase, WWF, everybody has a price kind of angle. Like, it's not that interesting. I mean, there's only so many of these all-access or 24/7s, which are just promotional vehicles. They parade as documentaries. But, I mean, he's producing the ones that Showtime are showing on him leading into fights.
Right.
So you're only seeing what he's willing to show you. And so, how many times can we see his fleet of cars and the women that he employs to be in the house at all hours? And you saw them in the most recent episode, smoking marijuana in front of him, which he didn't partake in, but it just looks, the limited exposure I've had to celebrity, there's a lot of boredom in the isolation of it. And certainly with boxers, they have to lead a life that's pretty much somewhere in between a monk and a slave in terms of having to be totally pure and devote themselves, 5 or 6 hours a day to grueling, exhausting training. And there's very few outlets for all the stress and anxiety associated with it.
All right, Britt, I'm sorry, we got to run. I'll have to do a whole show about this. We're going to have to do it sometime. We're up against it. But thank you so much for being on the show tonight. Brin-Jonathan Butler, find him on Facebook and get his book on Amazon. Brin, thanks so much tonight. We really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. Take care.
All right, be well. All right, folks, that's the end of our program, and I want to thank everyone for listening. Of course, our guest, Ari Roda, talked about the UEFA's ban lifted. Games can be in Israel. Euro 2020 not happening in Israel. And, of course, the meeting with Israel Kristal, the oldest Holocaust survivor on the planet. Cali Dave, 2-1 in the Israel Sports Radio Fantasy Football League, and good luck to him on that. David Z. Harris talked about the anti-Semitic banner with the Partizan Belgrade-Tottenham game, and we're happy that was taken down. Diamond Redmond will play for Portugal this year. Congrats to her on that. Israel baseball ranked 19th in the world. Peter Kerr's talking about Noam Kalisar potentially going to the majors. Brin-Jonathan Butler wrapping things up in regards to Floyd Mayweather. Shout out to everyone, and stay tuned for a lot of great programming, a lot of great stuff. But that's it for tonight. God bless, and good night.